Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is baby Aaliyah and she's here with us today to talk about her birth story. Having a baby at 40 in France and being a doula this time round. This is going to be a long vlog. Grab a cup of tea and let's talk. I had baby Aaliyah on the 15th of November 2024 and I found out I was pregnant on the 22nd of March 2024. Let me set the scene. So at this stage I had a 21-year-old, 3-year-old, 1-year-old, planning on getting married, planning my wedding, and partner had just had a rendezvous to meet with a doctor regarding his vasectomy. So, you know, no more kids for us, we're done, we're getting married. Find out I'm pregnant. Also, let me add, when I say we're getting married, we had an open bar for the wedding. So as much drink as you can drink. I'm English. I would have drank that bar dry. And I find out I'm pregnant. So to say we were surprised is an understatement. When we first found out I was pregnant, we did a pregnancy test. I feel like I did it by myself initially and showed him and saw it together. And he was like, let's do another one. I did another one, pregnant. Yeah, it doesn't seem quite accurate. Let's do a blood test. Did a blood test and I was like, mon amour, I think I'm pregnant. And yeah, the shocks, it was a difficult couple of weeks, I'm not going to lie, it was tricky. We were in our feelings, we were excited to an extent, we were happy obviously because we love children, we love the boys that we've got together, but I know the type of dad that my partner is, and he is a man that goes all in. He is literally the best father I've ever seen, experienced, witnessed every day. And he was worried, could he still be that dad and be as present for another one? And we had 2 little ones, we had 2 kids, 3 and under. So it was a lot. But we spoke, we discussed, we were honest, we were vulnerable with each other, and in the end we came to the decision together that we wanted to have Aaliyah and we were going to grow our family, whatever form that came in. She was here and voila, we were going to, not deal with it together because I still think it's a beautiful life, but yeah, we were getting through it together. I do believe that despite what we go through and what's happening, we do choose our parents, and I do believe somehow Aaliyah wanted to be born. She wanted to come and make her way into this world. That's just my opinion. Being 40 and pregnant, the term is now geriatric. Well, technically I've had 3 geriatric pregnancies. From 35 it's classed as a geriatric pregnancy. I had Elijah at 36, Isaiah at 38, and baby Aaliyah at 40. So yeah, I was very much into the geriatric pregnancies. I didn't feel geriatric, I didn't feel old, I felt really good during this pregnancy. I didn't have really any morning sickness, but I was treated a little bit differently this time. I felt, maybe also having like 3 consecutive pregnancies at my age, I felt like I was handled a little bit differently this time round. It was a lot of adjustment, being a mum now to 4 children in such a short period of time. In 4 years I'd gone from 1 child to 4. Emotionally, it was a lot to take on. It was like, what does this mean? How are we going to juggle this? Am I going to be as present for the 2 little ones? It was a lot. Is my daughter feeling like, whoa, mum, like, how many kids have you got, woman? Like, it was a lot. So I did struggle with that initially, and I just wanted to mentally prepare and know, I could be the best mum I could to these 4 kids and be present. And also, my partner as well, we were due to get married. I wanted to make sure we were strong, we were good, and we had a good foundation in place, because to be honest, the hormones are raging, and for 3-4 years of our relationship, we'd only been together at 5 years at this time. I've been pregnant for most of it, so that's also a lot. I didn't really know if he knew the real me without the hormones and the crazy, food and mood swings. So it was a lot. But despite all of this uncertainty, the great thing that shone through for me was I was now a doula. After I had my 3rd baby, I trained as a doula. This just empowered me. I felt like I knew what I was doing, and I thought, what better way to be what you say you are than by doing it yourself. So having the birth that I am promoting to women, I can do myself, and to say, look, I did it, it's possible, it works. So that was kind of like exciting to me as well this time around, being a doula, and there was no fear. There was literally no fear of the birth. There was no fear of having the baby. And that was really empowering. I felt there was just a shift. I felt like with Isaiah, we'd already done a lot. We'd done a lot of work together, me and my partner, and he knew how to support me in labour and everything like this. But this time I just felt like next level unlocked and I was ready to have this baby. Having a baby in France and what their healthcare system is like. So once I had my positive pregnancy test confirmed at the laboratoire, which is like the medical centre, I then went back to my obstetrician who I used for my last 2 previous pregnancies in France. Many people go with a sage-femme, which is a midwife. What's good with a midwife, they're flexible and they can have a continuity of care. So they can go from pregnancy, postpartum, and in France as well they do pelvic floor therapy, so they really care and prioritise aftercare. So that's a great option when you go with a midwife, you see the same person. But in my case I stuck with my obstetrician. I chose to give birth in a hospital. I think that's the most popular choice in France, but you obviously have private hospitals, you have natural birth centres, private clinics, or you can give birth at home. The hospital I went with is the same hospital I used for my other 2 boys as well, and I felt quite confident with the quality of care and I knew the place pretty well. The next thing is the paperwork. In France, the paperwork is crazy anyway, let alone when you're pregnant. You have a dossier, which is a folder, and you take it on every rendezvous, every appointment, everywhere you go, and it has your full medical history, any appointments, any blood work, everything is in your folder and you're responsible for your folder. Also, depending on where you have your baby, depends on the price. So in France, they have the Sécu, which is a bit like the NHS. That's the basic healthcare. Or you can pay for a mutuelle, your own private insurance, which is what I did, and everything is reimbursed afterwards. So extra scans, blood work, I think is free anyway, hospital stay, all of that stuff is covered. Medication, apart from prenatal vitamins, I do believe I paid for my own prenatal vitamins, but everything else was covered with my healthcare mutuelle afterwards. I also had a healthcare card in France, which is called a carte vitale, and that has my medical information on, and every time I see a healthcare provider, I pass them my carte vitale, and that updates during my pregnancy, and you use it when you're not pregnant as well. There are a few cultural differences I noticed having a baby in France as opposed to having a baby in the UK, where I had my daughter 22 years ago. In France, they're a lot more preventative, sometimes a little bit too much, so I felt a lot more nervous. Especially my first pregnancy in France, I just felt like they're a little bit over the top with, okay, now do this test, now do this test, now do this test. But I do think as well, they do rule out early complication. I felt very cared for, so to say. Whereas in the UK, I don't remember half as many appointments, and it was a lot less complicated. Secondly, I do feel like there was a cultural difference towards attitudes of pain. When I had my daughter, it was very normal. If I wanted to have a natural birth, there was pain medication on hand. I could have the gas and air, and that was an easy option for me. In France, it was almost like I had to fight to have a natural birth unmedicated, and it was like I was a bit strange. In France, 80% of women do have an epidural, so I do think I didn't really fit into the norm of what they're expecting. And I had to still speak with the person that would administer my epidural, even though I didn't want one, just to have my blood works. And the first thing she said was like, why would you do that? And I was like, why wouldn't I? So yeah, there is definitely more of a societal pressure to have an epidural. The language can pose a problem. I felt a lot more comfortable this time round, but you do need to know the birthing language of the country you're in. Nothing necessarily surprised me about the French healthcare system. It was pretty much as expected. I just think because it was my third time round, it was much more of an easier process. I knew what to expect. I knew what paperwork to have to hand. I knew what questions to ask, and I knew how to advocate for myself and insist on the birth I wanted. So yeah, it was definitely all round the best experience I've had giving birth in France. Physically, I felt really well. I didn't have any major sickness. I did throw up one time. It was mainly like smells and things that triggered me, or a bit of motion sickness, but in general I felt really, really good. Obsessed with food this time. I was obsessed, like literally from I woke up in the morning, what am I having for breakfast, what am I having for lunch, what am I having for dinner. Luckily I have a husband that cooks for me, so he literally was my private chef. He cooked everything, and yeah, the obsession was real. It wasn't necessarily cravings, I just wanted all of the same foods that I love, like my favourite foods I had to have all the time. I was a lot more tired this pregnancy, but I also had 2 little ones to take care of, so it was exhausting. I was also working full-time teaching, so yeah, I was tired and I couldn't just rest when I wanted to rest like I could with my pregnancy with Elijah. It was during lockdown, so I could sleep all the time. My daughter was a teenager, so it was fine, but this time having 2 little ones, I definitely felt it. And being older, maybe that made a difference as well. Physical signs that I noticed this time, that I had a visible bump a lot sooner. So I was showing from probably 3 months, 2.5 months, that I had a visible baby bump. And I had a lot of hyperpigmentation. So I had a lot of dark areas like my neck, my underarms, and around my belly button was a lot darker than I'd ever experienced the 4th time round. The checkups were pretty much standard initially. So you see your obstetrician, he gives you a monthly scan, and I also had to see another scan specialist because unfortunately my husband had heart complications when he was a baby and he was operated on. So we checked the baby's heart each time of my pregnancies in France. So yeah, we had 1 extra 4D scan a month as well. And that was fine regarding the heart, but unfortunately I developed a hematoma, I want to say around 8 weeks. So that's like a blood sac that's around the baby, and it was partially covering my placenta. At one point it was over half of my placenta was covered by the hematoma, so it was touch and go for a couple of weeks. I was signed off work, I was on bed rest, and I was like Googling symptoms. I was nervous, and what would happen was either the baby would continue to develop and the hematoma would just get smaller and smaller, or the hematoma would cover more and more of the placenta, cutting off the blood supply and oxygen to the baby, and unfortunately the baby would pass away. In my case, thank goodness, the baby did survive, obviously, and the baby continued to grow normally and the hematoma reduced in size. I didn't have any bleeding with the hematoma, which is often the case. I had no bleeding until after I had the baby. I'll go into that a bit later. This was my last baby. It was a strange feeling. I feel like I was a lot slower and more intentional with this pregnancy. I enjoyed the kicks. It's not that I didn't enjoy the kicks before, but I savoured every moment, basically. I really enjoyed this pregnancy and I felt very blessed to be pregnant again. I never expected to be pregnant again. So I felt extremely grateful, extremely honoured that baby Aaliyah chose me to be her mum. And yeah, I felt like, okay, this is like our last precious one, and then we're handing the baton on to the next generation kind of thing. So yeah, it was a beautiful pregnancy. I knew I wanted to have an unmedicated birth, so that was a natural birth without an epidural. So I prepared for that. Like anything you do, you have to prepare. You can't turn up to the hospital or wherever you're going to have your baby and just be like, yeah, I'm going to try a natural birth, see how it goes. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's a mind game, and you've got to be prepared months in advance. And that's what we did. So just to give you a background, so with my first daughter, I had a 36-hour labour. Lots of gas and air, but no epidural. With my son Elijah, I had a 19-hour labour and I got an epidural the last 8 hours of labour. Isaiah was a 9-10 hour labour and I had induction, no epidural. And Aaliyah also, I planned not to have an epidural. So I knew what that involved. It's more than just birth classes. It's that mental preparation. It's like putting the notes around the house. You could do this. You've got this, girl. All of that kind of thing is involved in preparing mentally to be able to like overcome that pain or waves, should I say. In my case, I use the term, you know, a wave is coming. And to get ready. Your partner needs to be on board and understand exactly what you need and want from him or her. And it's super, super important that you are, mentally prepared. I did a lot of work on the birth board and stretches. I wasn't overly active during my pregnancy. I kept it quite slow and light, but I, was opening up that pelvic area and just, doing natural, gentle exercises and keeping that movement flowing all throughout my pregnancy. I really prepared my partner on my birth preferences. We went through that together. I obviously insisted on certain things I really wanted. And also due to Black maternal death rate, Black women, even in the US and Europe, are 3 times more likely to die than white women. Unfortunately, that's due to medical bias and racism in the healthcare system, and they often believe that black women are not in pain, or they don't believe their pain, and they don't believe their symptoms, or they just have a negligence of care. So during labour, I knew that I would be focusing on just getting the baby out and being less stressed as possible. So I wanted my partner to speak to any healthcare professionals on my behalf. He knew exactly what I wanted. He knew how to advocate for me, so that was huge. We practiced that and prepared a lot for that, and had in my notes, in my dossier folder, we had my birth preferences in there as well. Being a doula this time round really helped with the preparation as well. I knew a lot more of the medical side to go along with the feelings this time, so it really made sense. I knew how to identify the different stages of labour, and I felt no fear. I think just being educated removes a lot of fear from the birth process. So being a doula this time around, I felt a significant difference in how I approached my birth preparation, and yeah, just the general vibe in the house. I just felt lighter knowing I've got this and I'm trained for this. The last part of birth preparation for us was having my daughter come over to watch the boys for us. So she came around the 39th week of my pregnancy, and in France your partner is allowed to sleep over in the hospital. So my partner was going to sleep over at the hospital with me, and my daughter was going to take the boys to school and childcare and so on and so forth. So yeah, that worked out really well. As part of our support team, it was my daughter. Unfortunately, towards the end of my pregnancy, I had a bit of protein in my waters, so it was recommended I have an induction. Induction isn't a great intervention, and I do believe there are more complications when you are induced. However, I have been induced before. I had a great positive induction story without an epidural previously, so I did believe I could do it again. And let's be honest, with 3 little ones, it was less complicated to know when I was having the baby. Being in another country, having that support from my daughter, I just was able to plan and organise around that, have the bags ready and prep my daughter and the kids on what was happening. So for us, it worked well. I'm not saying ask for an induction if you don't need it. I'm just saying in our situation, an induction and the complications I had, that seemed to be the best option for us. I was due to be induced at the hospital that we'd already planned on having the baby anyway, so that worked out fine. I had a date set, and on the 15th of November, I went to my appointment. They said, unfortunately, there were no spaces at the hospital. It was a really busy time, and it was a full moon. Apparently there's loads more babies born at full moon. So unfortunately, my husband wasn't able to stay over with me. He had to go home every night, but their visiting hours are super flexible. So he was with me through the birth and everything else anyway. As soon as I was admitted, we were able to settle into our room. My husband went and got all our bags. There were a lot of bags. And we were introduced to our birthing team, which was 2 midwives. At this point, we were just getting out our snacks, playing a bit of music, chilling. I feel like I had a series to watch. I can't remember what the series was, but I'm sure I had a series to watch. And we were super relaxed. We've done this before. We got this. We were chilling. They started my induction process at 2:15 in the afternoon, and I had a cannula in my in my hand, sorry. It took a few attempts. That was extremely painful. That was like, I've never experienced that. Like the needle kind of bent in my arm, and I don't like needles despite all the tattoos. Labour started quite rapidly after I had the Pitocin drip installed. I want to say like 2 hours afterwards. So around 4 o'clock, I was starting to get regular contractions. They were not extremely painful. I would say like a dull period pain. And things started to move quite rapidly. The birth team were wonderful. They read my preferences. They just checked everything that I wanted and if that was still the case. So for example, the baby wasn't to have a hat on her straight away. She was to have cuddles with me. The umbilical cord was to be cut when it stopped pulsing. She wasn't to be weighed or anything like that initially. And yeah, I wanted like them to address my husband if they had things to say. And I was wanting like a lot less intervention if possible, like don't check me every 2 seconds, and if you see I'm kind of like in the midst of a contraction, just let me get on with it kind of thing, and as little monitoring as possible. So those contractions went on for a couple of hours. There were nothing too painful. We had snacks, I was drinking my juice, and I was moving around as much as possible on that birthing ball. In France, gas and air is not really an option. Certain hospitals have it, but they don't really like to offer it to you, in my experience. You have to remember to ask for it again. And I knew I wanted that at the very late stage of labour. I didn't want that too early on, because then after that, where do you go, you know? So I wanted that to be literally when I'm at maybe an 8 in sensation, for them to introduce the gas in air. So at that time, I was literally just on my ball, listening to a bit of garage and just chilling. Now it's around 6 o'clock. My husband popped out for some food, and the surges amp up. Like, so I've gone from maybe like a 3 in pain level to like a 4, 5, 6 within the space of like minutes. And when he went to get his food, I was like, no, we're ages away. And considering I've had quite long labours despite having 3 kids previously, I didn't expect it to be so quick. So yeah, I was like, go get your food. And yeah, then there was like quite a drastic change in feeling, sensation and pressure. So as soon as my husband came back, I was like, okay, it's gone to the next level. He got the combs out, which are like wooden combs that go in the pressure points, and you squeeze, which kind of like diverts the pain to different areas. So I was putting them in my palms, and when the birth team saw that, they were like, okay, you 2 have got this, you're fine. And they kind of like gave very little interference. It was a wonderful experience. So we were continuing to do that. I had my app, my Freya app, which was like a nice countdown, doing my breathing, and then I switched to a deeper type of breathing, which will help with that level of intensity. And yeah, we continued like that, thinking I had hours to go.
So come on, let me see you get gone. Baby mamas, this your song. Been pregnant for way too long. Now tell the DJ turn it off.
If she a baby mama, she gon' do that baby mama.
Work.
She gon'.
And then I felt a sudden drop, and I thought, oh, this is a bit weird. This is coming on really, really quickly. And I was checked, and I was maybe 8 centimeters at this point. I had very few checks in between, and I think it can be a bit, I don't know, disheartening when you're labouring for age and there's like you've gone 1 centimetre. So I did as little as possible, and I went more by feeling how I felt rather than what they were telling me. I did also have my waters broken. I've never had my waters break naturally. Like in the movies, I've always wanted like, psh, oh, my waters have gone, but no, nothing of the sort. For me, every time my waters have been broken, and that definitely amps up the surges and the contractions. And yeah, so they broke my waters, and I continued on my ball. So at this point, it's 7 o'clock, and my surges, my pain level, if you will, is still quite basic. I'm thinking I've got another couple of hours, because most of my labours have been quite intense, even though, you know, I prepared for it, I know what I'm doing. It's been intense. It's changed significantly and quite quickly, but I'm still not at the level where I'm not screaming from the rooftop. So I feel like I'm okay for now. I didn't get checked again. I was just waiting, and then I felt a sudden reflex, an urge to push. The body has a natural urge to push, and it comes on at a certain time. And for me, it was just like a downward contraction, surge motion, and my body was like literally trying to just get this baby out. So I said to the midwife, I feel like a real strong sensation. I felt a lot of pressure. And when I spoke to my partner, he was like, I feel like you're at the end. Like, he knew the signs, had seen me before. He's like, I feel like you're at the end. At this point, I needed my music to be like a bit more upbeat, a bit more quicker tempo, a bit more grime, garage style, but like, let's go harder. So I went to do this on my phone, and my code just like disappeared from my mind. When I say like I could not remember my phone code for the life of me. I had one of those ones where you can like swipe it. Gone from my mind, gone from my memory, like nothing. And I also wanted to take pictures and, you know, kind of like have a little record for us of like the birth. Nothing, like gone. So I had no phone, and it was like, try again in a minute, tried again. And I was like, it literally left my mind. And now looking back on that, it was just for me to be present, you know, like getting on my phone and doing whatever on my phone. Yeah, it would have been nice to have my music playlist that I had saved for the birth, but at the same time, the after effects and the distraction is not necessary. And it was just calling me literally to be present. And you don't need your phone, girl. Put your phone down. The team in the room start to prepare her little crib and get like blankets and I don't know, the appropriate equipment necessary for the birth part. I'm on my side. I'm in slightly upright position with my legs to the side, and my partner's behind me, not head end, always behind me. And yeah, and then I'm saying that I'm feeling it. There's no coaching. I didn't want them like being little mini cheerleaders, push, push, push. No, I don't like that kind of thing. I just wanted to just push when I felt necessary to push and take my time and take it slow. The pushing for me was really, really fine. Obviously a lot of pressure, but it wasn't too uncomfortable and it wasn't too unbearable. Like, it was fine. So I was pushing maybe for 20 minutes. There was one point where the pressure and the discomfort increased, so I had a little pause, and I have teared previously, so I didn't really want to tear again. So I just took my time rather than trying to like go through the pain. I was like, okay, give it time, and then you get that urge to push again. You don't need to go against it. I had another urge after like 25 minutes of pushing. Baby Aaliyah was finally born at 7:39, weighing 7 pounds and 7 ounces. I love all the sevens. And she was 51 centimeters long. Like I said, we didn't get her measured and weighed straight away. That was a couple of hours later. First thing that happened, she was out, she was finally here, and she went straight onto my chest. The first thing that hit me is just like how much love I felt for her and how relieved and blessed I was. And it was over, and this is the bit, the golden hour I was waiting for. I was just also so surprised and amazed by, like, even though it was my 4th experience, it just felt so new. It just felt magic, just as special as the other times. The endorphins are just like going crazy, and you're just like in your little cocoon, and you're like, I did it, I did it. After that was a bit of a blur. They passed the baby to Toma and checked on me, made sure there wasn't too much bleeding, and that I passed my placenta. Because I had the hematoma and it was my 4th baby, even though my birth preferences, I preferred not to have the injection to help with passing the placenta, they advised me really respectfully that it was in my best interest, because it can help with bleeding, that I have this injection. So I had that, and I passed my placenta, and afterwards I had a lot of bleeding. Like, I felt a gush, which is normal, but it was just a lot, and then apparently it was dripping on the floor. Like, there was a lot of blood. Things get a bit blurry. I feel like lots of people came in the room. Maybe 3 specialist doctors came in. Again, each one introduced themselves, which was the difference of like being scared or being informed. So everyone said like, my name is so-and-so, my name is so-and-so. So at this stage, maybe I've got 2 male doctors here, my midwife right at the end of the bed, and I feel like another midwife or assistant midwife here, and my partner. So the room is starting to fill up, and the bleeding isn't stopping. So my placenta's out, the bleeding was continuing and continuing, and they said to me at this point, like, take some of the gas and air, and we're gonna like see if we can, you know, stop the bleeding. And then they did an assessment and checked and found that I had a little bit of placenta still stuck to the lining of my womb. So they needed to get that out, basically. So they tried that manually. I kept having gas and air, sorry for TMI. And unfortunately it wasn't successful. So they got a specialist. They put me to sleep in the same room that I'd given him birth in, and put me to sleep for like 10 minutes, and they were able to remove the placenta that was stuck. And yeah, I came to, and everyone said it went really well. They were able to remove everything, and the bleeding looked significantly less. So that was great. And I was passed back the baby, which was all a lot, because obviously I had like the drip with the anesthetic. I had a lot going on. So yeah, it wasn't scary, it was just a bit overwhelming per se, and I didn't really have much time with baby before that. So it's just like trying to just come to terms with giving birth to a baby, and then all of a sudden it was just kind of chaotic and very medical. After that, the medical team slowly started to leave, and I was left with just me, my partner, and the baby, and we had a good couple of hours in that room while they were preparing our other room. As I said, it was really, really busy, so my room wasn't ready at the time. And yeah, we were just looking at baby, obsessed with baby, and taking it all in. We headed up to our room around midnight. Normally in France, if you've opted for it, you can have your own private room, but because it was so busy, I was in a room with another lady, and we were like separated by a curtain. And I was wheeled into my room, and I was able to like settle in, and my partner was able to stay with me for a couple of hours, and then he went home in the early hours of the morning. I've had a struggle relationship with breastfeeding. I've always wanted to breastfeed, but unfortunately it's not always been my experience that it was the easiest thing to do, or I was able to do. I've had very low milk production one of the times, and yeah, just like technical difficulties and nipple shields and this, that and the other. It just became a palaver. I've often pumped as well, but with Aaliyah being the third little one in our household, it just wouldn't be practical to be pumping around the clock because you're doing double duty and also feeding her bottle. So eventually I decided to bottle feed her. She had one feed when she was born with me and another feed in the room, and then I decided to go straight onto bottle, and that was a big difference this time. I knew what worked, I knew what didn't work, and however lovely they are popping in and out, like, are we going to try on this boob, are we going to try on that boob? No thank you, I want to give her a bottle. It's best for her, best for me. I do checks quite often, yeah, every couple of hours, make sure baby's feeding well, you're doing okay, that my bleeding didn't increase anymore, and everything was okay basically. And the nurse noticed that the baby looked quite yellow, so they did a BB flash, and it turned out she had jaundice. So they whisked her away, they took her to the neonatal, and she was put under the UV lights for 9 hours. Because my partner wasn't allowed to stay with me, I had to use the lady's phone next to me because I couldn't use my phone, still didn't have access to my code at this point, and asked to borrow her phone and let my husband know that the baby had been taken down. We experienced this one time before with Elijah in 2020. He also had jaundice. So we knew what to expect. We knew the light therapy worked, and it was still horrible, you know, seeing the baby with the goggles on and everything. Baby came back out of the ICU. She came to me, and then she was regularly checked to check her levels were still continuing to go down and not to rise. And they were doing the BB flash to check this. Things started to stabilise. My daughter came to visit with the boys. My partner came to visit again, and yeah, we had the first proper day with her. And it was just lovely. We spent time with her. She was super sleepy. I'm not sure if that's her or the jaundice, but she slept a lot, and we chilled, we chatted, and we just basked in those early moments with her. It was gorgeous. Shortly after that, they checked her again, and it looked like her jaundice was still coming back and quite high. Her levels was increasing again. So she did another 9 hours, so that's 18 hours in total, under the lights. And this was a hard session, this was an intense session, and I just felt a bit shit really. I just missed the baby. I didn't want her to be going through this, even though it's not necessarily painful. It's just that they're away from you, they're in this little incubator by themselves, and yeah, they just want to be with their mama, and you just want to be with them. So it was quite tricky. So yeah, that happened again. I went to visit her a few times. My daughter came with me as well to visit her there, and I want to say we brought one of the boys as well. My daughter goes home at this point, so my daughter left before I was released from the hospital, which was a shame. But yeah, my daughter had to go back to uni, so she left, and we were you know, managing the kids between us. Partner still was visiting me during the day but wasn't able to stay at night. By the third day, aha moment, it came to me, and I put my code in my phone, and then something was like, watch your finger. So I then observed myself doing the code. It was just like surreal. It was like in my subconscious, but I couldn't really remember. So then as I caught myself doing it, and then my phone was back, called my sister, called my friends, I've had the baby. And people were starting to worry by this point, because I normally would have been in touch with them and everything, and I hadn't been. So yeah, I just find it so funny that the code literally left my mind and then came back like 3 days later. Every day her jaundice levels are going down and down. She's really adjusting to bottle feeding, and we were released from the hospital, which was great news, and came home and started our lives with baby Aaliyah really. So that was wonderful. In general, I would definitely say this has been my best birth by far. Just the experience I had of being a doula this time round and putting that into practice. I think being a doula made my birth better, and also giving birth as a doula made me a better doula, if that makes sense. I feel like both just go together so nicely. Just look the way I see my husband as well, like he was my birth partner, he was my midwife, he was everything. And the connection, when you are just like in sync with each other, it was a dance by this point. Like he's amazing, we were amazing, we were a great team, and yeah, like there is no one I would want more. The first birth together, sorry to say, he was like a literal plant in the corner, didn't know what to do, just sat there and just awkward and just like feeling for me in pain, as a lot of men do feel, you know, and go through that. And then this time just hands-on, intuitive, like just knew what I needed. Literally didn't even need the app at that point, because he knew when my pain was coming, not even just by looking at the monitor. He just knew. He just got me, knew, giving me a massage when, as and when I needed it, pressure on, pressure off. Just, yeah, it worked really, really well. So by far my best birth. Again, even though it was induced, and with an induction, there is a worry that it's going to be more pain because it's artificial and you're having these contractions come on from nowhere. It definitely was more painful in a way, but at the same time it was expected. I knew how to handle the pain, not just in theory, in practice, and I had steps, and I'll do a video if you're interested on that. How do you go from this level to this level of pain, and what tools can you use? So I'll definitely do that shortly. And also, it just was my last baby for sure, like knowing he was having his vasectomy, so it just felt special. It just felt beautiful, and I've gone from girl, boy, boy, girl, and it just was complete. I feel like, yeah, the circle was complete, and that was it. Having a baby naturally for me isn't about saying like I'm super strong and I had no pain relief and kind of like showing off, or, you know, the pain Olympics and like I supported this and I did a 29-hour labor. No, for me it's just knowing you can get through anything. Not just that, the way that your partner understands the depth of you and gets to see you in that situation and knows you've got this. And just your body, I feel like despite the stretch marks, despite the weight gain, despite how you may feel about your body, you have carried and birthed a human being by yourself, and you can do this. The mental fatigue, the mental challenge, it's you against you, and you've got through that. Everything else is okay. Everything else you can handle. You took a person, you brought a spirit basically from out there in here and into the world. And in France they say mettre au monde, you bring life into the world, and it's so that is the case for me. So I definitely believe there is just a transformation within me each time I've had a natural birth, of just like, oh my God, like I am a superwoman. And just in the sense that, yeah, I know I can handle any situation that comes my way, and I am a strong woman. Not just physically, just in every sense of the word, and that it just builds confidence in yourself as well. And also to say, I want to do this and I've done this, it's, yeah, self-esteem, self-confidence. I just think it's just beautiful to have that experience. If that's what you're looking to do, I really highly recommend it. To anyone wanting to have a child later on in life, I would definitely say go for it. Yes, you are going to be a little bit more tired. Yes, it's a geriatric pregnancy and there could be more complications, but also a lot could go right. You could literally have the baby you've always longed for. You could be healthy and have a great pregnancy, and you might have the same healthy pregnancy as anyone in their 20s. Just because there are statistics and just because there is this label, it doesn't mean that's going to be your experience. As a doula moving forward, I'm definitely going to put into practice the tools from this labour, and just make sure it's a more personalised care package for the women that are wanting to have a natural labour, as I feel like I have a lot more expertise in that area, having done that 3 times now. You just never stop learning. Every labour I've learned something more. Every experience added to what I'd also learned in my doula education. So yeah, you're constantly learning, and women's health is constantly evolving. So that's one thing I've learned. And also there is just times you just need to be the mother, the wife, or just the woman. So there are different roles that we embody, and sometimes you've got to know when each role is necessary. I cannot overstate the need for support during a pregnancy and during birth. My husband is my rock, he is my village, but for those that have extended friends, family, make sure you set that support system up before your birth and have everything in place and prepared, because you definitely are going to need to lean on people, and help is necessary. Like, you've got to rest, and it's so key. The advice I would give anyone giving birth in another country or in France is, firstly, get to know their healthcare system. So what does having a baby or pregnancy look like in that country? Is it midwife led? Do you have an obstetrician? Is it your doctor that follows the healthcare? What does that look like? If they speak English, great. If they don't, do you know the labour language? or the birthing language in that country? Do you feel comfortable, or could you get a translator? Wherever you're having a baby, your voice really matters. You've got to speak up. It's so important that you set out the birth preferences that you would like, and also make sure you speak up and advocate for what you would like. No one else is going to do it for you more than you. And again, have the support in place that you need. So maybe that might be a doula, maybe that might be a night nurse, or someone that can come over, or a cleaner, or you might get your meals batch cooked quickly for you. Make sure you have something in place that takes the load off a little bit during that time. So my ultimate takeaway is no birth is perfect. There are going to be things that come up, and you have to learn to pivot. You have to learn to adapt. And the key is it's your birth. That's the same thing that's continuous through all of the journey that you go on during your pregnancy. You're in charge. When things change, ask yourself, what can I do? What do I want from this labour, from this birth, from this experience, and adjust accordingly. But it's your birth ultimately. You can say yes or no to any part of it, and bear that in mind. You can have a wonderful empowered birth, no matter what that looks like, whether that's cesarean, whether that's induction, whether that's natural. It's your labour, your birth. Thank you so much for listening to my birth story. I hope it's been useful in some way. Please comment down below what you'd like to see more of, and if my birth templates or anything like that would be useful to you guys, let me know. Like my hospital bag template, my birth preferences and stuff. As usual, if this resonates for you, please like, comment, subscribe and share, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye guys.